I'm a true believer in the notion that superhero stories are great life lessons. The Marvel Universe is massive, and as much as they keep trying to condense it, there are still hundreds of thousands of characters, each with their own tale to be learned from. But what is it about Spider-Man specifically that resonates with people so well? Created by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, Spider-Man debuted on the pages of Amazing Fantasy number 15, a comic scheduled to be cancelled later that year, but the character's popularity led him to be spun off into his own series in 1963, and it was Spider-Man's realism, relatability, and psychological complexity that helped redefine what was expected from comics of that era. It was a brand new take on the superhero genre. The idea that superpowers won't always improve your life. He can do these incredible things, yet he's still subject to the hardships we face as everyday people, like financial issues, bullies, and relationships. His powers didn't absolve him of his day-to-day problems, they enhanced them. He still gets bullied, but now it's by supervillains. His relationships have greater stakes, time management, keeping up a social life, everything. He's the everyman hero.
Well, I think Spider-Man may be perhaps one of the most realistic of all the heroes, because when I originally planned him, I wanted him to have problems. The one thing that my publisher felt no hero should have. But I think the average reader can empathize with him and could say, gee, yeah, that happened to me. Sure, I know how he feels. I tried to make him as human as possible.
Spider-Man and Peter Parker's lives are knitted together so tightly that any misstep on either side of the identity greatly affects the other. Relationship issues lead him to being unfocused. Money problems could interfere with him being able to repair his web shooters or even make the webbing, which could give him a major disadvantage in battle. If you remember in Spider-Man how much tougher that game became when you were low on webbing, which is why a lot of people had issues with the organic webbing from Raimi's original Spider-Man trilogy. Not only because it removed that layer of tension, but it also took focus away from Peter being a great scientist. The lives of characters like Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Steve Rogers, or Tony Stark aren't typically interlinked to the degree that Peter's is to Spider-Man. So what is it about that connection that makes Spider-Man such an interesting character? Well, in the words of Shakespeare, be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them. Like many characters in the Marvel Universe, he's completely a hero of circumstance. But even more so than characters like the Hulk or the Fantastic Four, who were all victims of their own scientific experiments. Peter never had any noble aspirations. Originally, he tried using his powers for profit. He had no intention of being a hero. The selfish choice is always the one most available. And the interesting thing about Spider-Man is how often he makes that selfish choice.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
When Uncle Ben is murdered, it's the outcome of that specific choice Peter made, not just some random criminal act. And it's that guilt that informs the entire character. All the most tragic events in Peter's life are caused by his own hand. Gwen, Captain Stacy, Uncle Ben, no matter what happens, no matter what it costs him, Peter will try to help people to the best of his abilities because he knows the price of not doing it. Spider-Man is one of the few books that's able to tackle serious subject matter like death and corruption and insecurity without resorting to being edgy or dark. It just feels real, and that's what makes him so universally relatable. Any one of us could be under that mask. He's flawed, he learns, he grows. He won't always make the right decision like Superman, because he's not a superhero. He's a kid playing superhero. The Spider-Man persona is an act. It's a teenage boy's idea of what a superhero is supposed to be. He's daring and fearless and confident. Even the name he gives himself. He isn't Spider-Boy or Spider-Lad, he's Spider-Man. He's everything that Peter Parker wishes he was. Spider-Man's the manifestation of Peter's internal frustration of being bullied as a kid, powerless to defend himself. But now he finally has the ability to set things right. It's essentially teen angst channeled into his own interpretation of justice. But he struggles with that heroism. He has to constantly remind himself of why he fights. And when doubt settles in, it crushes him, and he quits, only to return out of guilt.
I'm just Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man. No more.
He eventually learns the meaning of his uncle's words. With great power comes great responsibility, but it takes time. No one should aspire to be like Spider-Man, because Spider-Man himself is aspiring to be like greater heroes. He's right down there with us.
Can I be your sidekick?
The best part of him being on the Avengers is he isn't needed. He's outclassed by nearly everyone, but he's there because he wants to make a difference. Because on some level, he's trying to prove to himself that he can do what's right and rise up to the rest of them. Peter Parker's an incredible character in that he's just as interesting outside of the suit as he is in it, which is why it's been disappointing that he hasn't been done justice in his own films for quite some time. But from what we saw in Civil War and with Homecoming in the works, it feels like Spider-Man can be fresh again. It's an exciting time to be a Spider-Man fan.